Hi guys, my name is Sierra Armis and the title of my speech is Captivity is Immoral. I remember when I was younger, I used to love going to zoos and animal related amusement parks. And I remember one of my favorite things to do was to go see the orcas and the shows that they put on. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And unfortunately, something that I learned later in my life that kind of put a damper in that for me was that orcas in captivity usually only live around 30 years or less, while orcas in the wild usually live around 100 years old, according to vitana.org. Orcas are just one example of the animals who suffer in captivity, unfortunately. Captivity meaning amusement parks and zoos. I've researched this topic for about a week now. We've had this project, and I feel that I have enough of an understanding to speak about this topic. I've always been an animal lover, and as I got older, that transformed into me becoming more of an active animal activist. I feel strongly that I can speak about this topic because I have done enough research and I've weighed out the pros and the cons, which I'm going to list to you today. I'm here today to tell you that holding animals in captivity, such as zoos and amusement parks, is wrong because it can cause physical and psychological harm to these animals. According to LevithianProject.us, the term zoochosis refers to the psychological problem that affects animals in captivity. Often you would see zoochosis signs as things like circling, pacing, bar biting, air biting, rocking back and forth, swaying, head bobbing, over grooming, and even self-mutilization. Animals in captivity, such as zoos and amusement parks, suffer physical and psychological harm. I read an article written by Eileen Cronin on onegreenplanet.org that was about a zoo in Britain giving their penguins Prozac for being able to function properly. I later read that the zoo claimed that they gave the penguins Prozac because they were exhibiting signs of zoochosis, meaning they weren't exhibiting normal signs, they couldn't function properly, so the zoo claimed. Cronin, actually the person who wrote the article, goes on to say that this depression could be caused by a number of things, some of those being extreme weather changes, changes in habitat, an increased amount of human contact, or a combination of all the three. Similarly, I read another article written by Laura Smith that was about a polar bear named Gus, who lived at the New York Central Park Zoo. And he actually earned himself the nickname the bipolar bear. Smith wrote about the bear who was also given Prozac for people claiming that he was exhibiting unusual behaviors, such as doing repeated figure eights. Like they said in the article, it was about 12 hours a day. He was just doing figure eights in the water over and over, and the repetitive behavior started to alarm people. The next alarming sign that Gus started to give off was that he was giving off the predator gaze, and he was actually stalking children from behind his window in his enclosure in his pool. So they actually had to block off the enclosure from the public eye, and then they also medicated him with Prozac like they did with the penguins in Britain, and then they also additionally gave him behavioral therapy. According to thedolphinproject.com, hundreds of orcas have actually died in captivity, which brings me to my next point, that keeping animals in captivity is wrong because of the serious physical health problems that occur to these animals in zoos and amusement parks. Unfortunately, people go to zoos all the time and don't realize how sick these animals are. One example of that is the beloved orcas, and they often suffer collapsed dorsal fins, which, according to thedolphinproject.com, suggested that it was due to the lack of being able to swim in straight lines or just not having enough swimming space in general due to their small pools that they're kept in. And according to onegreenplanet.org, orcas swim on average up to 100 miles a day. So I was a little shocked when I read that orca tanks are usually only 48 feet in diameter, according to uswhale.org. This is just one example of the physical harm that can come from captivity. Many other animals suffer from captivity as well, that usually the public eye doesn't see, or that zoos or amusement parks often have opportunities to hide from the public eye. I chose this example specifically because it is the one that I would say is most seen by the public and also most uneducated. Like, most people don't know when they see the collapsed dorsal fin that it is due to serious health problems and or injuries that can most likely be caused from captivity. One of my favorite movies growing up was Free Willy, because I was so happy to see the whale at the end of the movie being set free, and it was such, like, the traditional happy ending. What I didn't know was that the movie was actually based on a true story. I later learned that Free Willy wasn't actually freed in the way we all would have hoped. I found out later when I was doing research actually on the movie that when the actual whale that the movie was based off of was set free, he soon after died because he didn't have the exact, I guess you could say, inhibitions that a normal wild orca would have, and he didn't have the not only physical but psychological tools he needed to survive out in the wild, which to me was a big childhood bubble burster. Unfortunately, not all animals held in captivity have the same happy ending that the movie did, which is why I said a lot of people don't even know the real story behind Free Willy and don't know that he didn't have that happy ending. And seeing that and knowing that made me never want to go to another zoo or animal-related amusement park again, which brings me back to my main point that keeping animals in captivity is wrong because it can cause physical and psychological harm to these animals. After hearing my speech, I hope that you were able to use your critical thinking skills and see how wrong keeping animals in captivity truly is.